Now for Global Business Updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abasi. Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning, Rufai. All our viewers out there. Oil, well, of course, where else do we begin? Still being pressured by the fear of tariffs because China is the largest consumer of oil. We came kind of a bit. Brent crude 64, West Texas at 60. As you see, Nigeria's benchmark, all of that oil-producing nations impacted. And this very interesting quote from an S&P Global analyst for oil. Take a listen and look at what he said. James Burkhardt. He said the tariffs on China are now higher. That's pretty significant. And he says these negotiations with all these different countries, can the U.S. negotiate with 70 countries all at once? I don't think the chaos is over because the administration continues to say, oh, everybody is calling us and we're going to do bilateral trades. It will be interesting to see how these negotiations move forward, but the time horizon is what is worrying people. Speaking of tariffs, the effective rate now is 145% when you include the fentanyl, the this, the that, the steel, and just everything else in the back and forth. But breaking news, we just got the first comments from Xi Jinping on the tariff matter. Pedro Sanchez, the Prime Minister of Spain, is in Beijing as we speak. He just touched down. So Xi was making some comments, and here he says there are no winners in a trade war, and going against the world will only lead to self-isolation. He continues saying that basically China is not afraid. He says for over 70 years, China's development has relied on self-reliance and hard work, never on handouts from others, and it is not afraid of any unjust suppression. And then he says they will just continue to do what they're doing, regardless of how the external environment changes. That's a very key thing there. He says China will remain confident, stay focused, and concentrate on managing its own affairs well. Victor Gao is the vice president for the Center of, I think, Global Affairs. He was on Channel 4 News, and he sounded even more defiant than Xi Jinping. So on all fronts, China is just putting the message out that we're not backing down. This was in the UK. Take a listen.
Is that in this scenario, to use your metaphor, the US has the bigger gun, and so China ends up having more to lose from this trade war, doesn't it? You know, it can't sustain the loss of 15% of its export market, i.e. what you export to the US.
Not at all. China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. Right. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000.
And by the way, so you have Spain coming to, the Prime Minister of Spain coming to visit Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping is heading to Southeast Asia. He's going to Vietnam, I think Cambodia. He's going to a number of Asian nations. He's also, China is opening channels with the EU with respect to, so they're trying to basically just, you know, move from the US, but the US is still a very large market. Asian stocks, by the way, since we're discussing all this, mixed bag in trading today. Shanghai Composite Index up, Hong Kong was up, but the Nikkei, in fact, at one point, the Nikkei 225 was down by almost 4%, moderating just a bit. Kospi down, TAIEX in Taiwan up, ASX 200 in Australia up. US markets, after the historic jump on Wednesday, falling on Thursday. Look at the market. The reality came back to the market that, look, okay, even after this 90-day pause, okay, so what? You go back to the uncertainty again. And Trump, in his cabinet meeting, he invited journalists yesterday. They asked him, if you don't get a negotiation with these 70-plus countries, what happens? He said, we'll go back to the global tariffs. Now, this is the thing that came up here. Trump tweeted this, or rather truthed it on his Truth Social. This is a great time to buy DJT. He noticed he put his initials there. But DJT is the stock symbol for the media company that is the parent company to Truth Social. And he tweeted this about an hour before he came out and then said the tariffs were paused. That circle there is 21.6% gain for the stock after he came out to say that. So Democrats are now saying that this is it. Meanwhile, Harold Lutnick was, he was on CNBC, and listen to the sarcasm from the anchor when she asked him about Trump tweeting, putting that truth thing out. Here's how he laughed it off.
It was not the policy before then. He also seems to be a great stock pundit, Mr. Secretary. Earlier this morning, before the pause, he put out a message saying it's a great time to buy, and here we are. Here we are,
Well,
much higher.
I'd always bet on Donald Trump. Every time I'd always bet on
He
Donald
also
Trump.
wrote DJT, which is the ticker for his media company.
No. Every text
just
he
his-
does.
that was just his-
Every
okay.
text he sends to me, that's his name.
But that
That's
was a
how he
great
says
time to
it.
buy the market, right? I mean, uncanny.
Well, Donald, look.
Anytime. Meanwhile, Adam Schiff, I mean, you trust the U.S. institutions.
Oh, yeah, Schiff.
Adam Schiff,
Schiff did the last impeachment.
listen to him. He said they're going to investigate.
Yes.
They will investigate. Listen.
So today, Trump removed many of the tariffs he had imposed in this on-again, off-again, it must be Wednesday, tariffs are off again kind of policy. This has just wreaked havoc on the markets, of course. But there is another profound danger as well, and that is insider trading within the White House, within the administration. You may have seen early in the day Trump tweet this. Now, this is a good time to buy. So the question is, between that tweet and Donald Trump's announcement that he was reducing the tariffs on most other nations apart from China, the question is, who knew what the president was going to do? And did people around the president trade stock knowing the incredible gyration the market was about to go through? Because look, this is a president who is trading in his own meme coin, even as he's president. His kids are trading in their own cryptocurrency. You've got people like Elon Musk who are doing their own conflicted self-dealing in the administration. In any administration this corrupt, it is more than necessary to ask, were people personally profiting from insider information while people's savings, their retirement accounts, were being torched? So we're writing to the White House to demand answers. Now, I am fully cognizant of the fact that the White House is probably the last place to be forthcoming about this or any other corruption in the administration. We in Congress need to do more than demand answers. We need to do the oversight necessary to get those answers.
He's put his people there.
Like there.
That's
So
what hegemony is.
anyway, look, we're done. Just some business bits, just some extra bits of news that came in. Prada, of course, as we know, purchased Versace for 1.3 billion. Versace wanted 3 billion. It was 1.5. They knocked off 200 million because of these tariffs, because of luxury, and China is one of the biggest purchasers of luxury. So that's there. UK February GDP just came in 0.5% month on month, 1.4 year on year, beating expectations. Although we think they are front-loading items to avoid tariffs. US March inflation decelerated 2.4. JP Morgan reporting its quarterly earnings later today. Is the first bank out of the gate. Everybody wants to hear what Jamie Dimon has to say about tariffs. He's already spoken about them, and we get more. And speaking of JP Morgan, we have their chief economist for Africa, Bola Hontaiwo, is going to be joining us on the Global Business Report to talk about Nigerian economy, Euro bonds, and the like. That's our update for today, Friday.
Insider trading pure.
Straight.
There's
No question.
no controversy. There's no attempt to do PR and cover this. He tweeted it. You see, this is the same thing that make people go to jail.
Yes.
People lose their life, they lose their career for this. Obviously, he knew what was happening, and that's why we kept on telling the world, don't vote an hegemony. People were talking because of religion. If we ban same-sex marriage, if we do this, you can see the disruption he has caused in the world today.
11 trillion.
11 trillion gone.
In just 2 months.
The same money he said he wanted to save through Doge was about 1 or 2 trillion. He's lost.
He's
11
lost
trillion now
10
he's lost. This is the same money. That 11 trillion will pay for the tax cut he wants to give to his rich friend for 10 years.
Oh, by the way, they passed that one, the preliminary this thing.
They will pass it, definitely.
But the estimates are what you were saying.
And
that 8 trillion.
SEC will not talk to him because he's put all his paddy men in the organization.
Yeah,
Nothing will
loyalists.
happen. Loyalists, that's what hegemony does. And that's why the world is in dire strait today.
I want to focus on China.
Yeah.
When I saw everything developing yesterday, it reminded me of one of my first trips to China where my translator, it was around lunchtime, and I saw McDonald's. So I said to my translator, let's go to McDonald's. This is a Chinese guy. And he says, no, I don't go into American restaurants.
Really?
He was a staff of the Chinese government.
Yeah.
So I tell this story to demonstrate the psychology behind China. China is the country that where you find that the leading indoctrination is still that of Chairman Mao Zedong, which is an elevated level of Marxism, Leninism. And one thing about Maoism is that it's about war.
Yeah.
One thing Chairman Mao preached is how revolutions require war, revolutions require fight, they require discipline, pride over everything. So many values there. So it's very tricky to go to war with a nation that has that set of values that can easily wake up and say, I saw posters and banners yesterday in some Chinese stores where they've already put up posters to say extra 100% fee for American customers. Because that's the level of patriotism and indoctrination that exists in that country. It reminds me a lot of what happened with Russia, going to war with Russia, where you thought sanctions will cripple them, this will cripple them. It hasn't, yes, of course, there was an impact. But if you go into Moscow, life is going on as normal. The economy has largely been unaffected within Russia itself. So very, very tricky opponent to provoke war with. And of course, they're in discussions with the EU already about abolishing tariffs on electric vehicles.
That's right.
That'll be a game changer on its own. I just say that we're watching closely because I do not wish anybody to be at war with China.
The big story is about Trump saying now 10% unilateral tariffs, for the next 90 days. All other tariffs suspended for now, except with China. Now, China, if we listen to Xi Jinping, is reacting and playing up Chinese nationalism. China has said, we will fight to the end. We will resist the United States. We will not be intimidated by the United States. Because there's a thinking in China, in this trade war, that, look, the U.S. is at a disadvantage. And that's why Xi Jinping is sounding in that regard. Apart from the tariffs imposed on China, even de minimis, they call it de minimis, tariff on China has been escalated. 90% by June 1. It was first 25%. Now it's been pushed to 30%, now 90% by June 1. But China is saying we will resist. So there's a wave of Chinese nationalism as China is trying to also look for other markets within the Asia-Pacific region and elsewhere. Number 2 point in the market is that after the gains that we witnessed on Wednesday, the Asia-Pacific markets went lower today. Even in the U.S., the major indexes, S&P 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ Composite, they all went down. So the big lesson of this is that the uncertainty is going to persist. A lot of uncertainty. And with the two big economies in the world, the largest economy, the U.S., the second largest, China, that is going to have a broad effect on the global economy. That's the thing we have to worry about. Now, Trump is saying negotiations. I've seen some memes, I think that's what they call it, on social media about penguins and seals going to the United States to negotiate with Donald Trump. from head and McDonald Islands, from Norfolk Island, from the British Virgin Island territories, and all of that. People are trying to make a joke out of it. But Besant, I think that's his name. Scott Besant, he says, look, this was the plan all along. But I think that what you are dealing with is Trump not knowing what he's doing.
Exactly, I agree.
Even the people who supported him have doubts now. The markets have been roiled, and the future is uncertain. However, the CPI, Consumer Price Index in the US, was recorded at 2.4% yesterday. It was 2.8% in February. So it looks like the Federal Reserve still has a wiggle room. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.